Welcome to Sex, Lies, and Blank Pages with our special guest, Kat T. Mason. Welcome.
Hi.
Hey, welcome. So excited for you to be here.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I love having you on. Could you introduce yourself for the audience? For those of you who don't know who the fabulous Kat T. Mason is, you should. And here she is.
Yeah.
So Patty Mason. I am an author first, I would say. Been writing since 2014. And I now run Books Ever After as well. So it is an indie romance bookstore, specializing in special and limited editions. And as you can tell by the accent, I'm from Australia as well.
I think it's absolutely brilliant and amazing that you created this store.
Yes.
I know I could talk forever and a day about business, but do you want to how did it come about where you were like, I'm going to sell special editions of indie romance and make everybody $1 million? Like that's what I feel like you just sat down one day and you're like, this is what I'm going to do.
Because it's a really genius idea, very
It is.
genius, and very new and exciting.
And probably
Yeah,
very
look,
exciting for people in Australia that
Mhm.
can't get the books maybe as easily.
yeah, definitely. Look, I mean, I'd always wanted a bookstore like absolutely every single person. But I'd say that after COVID and this need to want to experience more in the world and have more experiences, I was like, I don't just want a bookstore because there's bookstores. I want something where you make the effort to go there. And when you go there, it's this feeling that stays with you because you're like, oh my God. And then you spend money because you drove all the way there. And then you go home and you got to tell everyone about it. And it just sticks with you. And so that was the core thing for me that after COVID, I started looking at things very differently and started traveling and wanted to experience that just with different places. So I'm like, well, how do I make that happen with a bookstore? And then it just came about. I think it was it was always in my head, but when it doesn't leave my head every single day, I'm like, we've got to start looking at places. And I actually found the most perfect place, which is a little country town just outside of Sydney. And it's a quite a affluent and wealthy town, which kind of bodes well. People go there for coffees, they go there for the weekend. So I'm like, well, that's the place. That's it. And that's honestly how it began. I get asked every single day, how do I open a bookstore? Where do I find all the books?
I
Um,
want to know how you write while also running a bookstore because I know that has to have, you've written how many books now?
Not a lot. 22-ish, maybe.
That's a lot.
Still a lot. I mean,
It's a
that's
lot.
a lot.
It's a
Give yourself
lot.
credit for that.
But I know it has to like taking on more of the business. Like as you progress in the career, there's more business to do normally, so people slow down. So do you have to like cut out time in order to write?
Yes, so we've grown our team, which is my husband and his best friend who run the operations side. And then my best friend who's a store manager, but she also steps in to do orders. That was ultimately what was taking my time, literally being there and packing these online orders because we opened the online store as well. And I would say that probably 80% of our customer base is actually the US,
Yeah, I was going to
which
say, I know that I have sold special editions from your store to US. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I got emailed this morning. Where's my secrets and submissions? And I'm like, it's delayed.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
taking a lot.
relax. It's literally on a plane right now to here. Yeah, look, it's definitely an eye-opener, not to drop any Easter eggs and hints that the US is the biggest market. So it is on my bucket list to venture out there.
Make a
Um,
franchise.
Woohoo.
Yeah, look, but I also know and very prepared that it would be 100 times bigger than what it is here. And so my only roadblock at the moment is like, if you are going to do that, you are going to be prepared because unlike this store, I opened it and I didn't know what to expect. I know that if I open over there, whether it be online or physical, I know that I'm going to need a massive team.
Yeah.
And I'm going to need all the funds and I'm going to need all this because it's going to blow up. And I know that, right? So if you kind of know that, then I'm like, it has to be the right time and I have to be invested in it. I've got to have time to do that. And right now it's a bit, we're still just, laying down the foundation here in Australia, which is still a lot of work.
I love it. I love it 1,000,000%. And I love manifesting blowing up over here with special editions of all of us. I know that I have books. I have my entire Discreet series in your store. And Stacey, I believe you have books either there currently or
I
coming.
think they're coming, right? Yeah, I think they're coming.
And you
So
have
an interesting fact about Willow's books is I would say that 95% of people who walk into our bookstore and see that don't know who she is. And they buy her books not knowing at all who she is, or they say, I saw this on TikTok. I don't know who the author is. They look at the little list and be like, oh, I'm going to take Serial Killer Love Triangle, which was sold out of at the moment because it's so popular. And they just buy. So it really does prove a point that most of the indie authors sitting in this store, a lot of the book talkers don't know. They base it off cover. They purely base on cover and be like, I like that. I'm going to buy it. And ultimately, that's a fantastic thing because they're not swayed by who they know or what. They just look at the cover and they're like, I love it. I'm going to buy it. And Willow's an absolute example of that. They just go to that wall and they're like, well, actually, not just that wall. All He'll Ever Be is another one to be claimed. All her hardbacks are the exact same. They don't know who she is and they buy it because they're like, this looks pretty.
It's the marketing.
Oh, that's how I date. He's pretty. I'm gonna date. It's like going home. Like, what's that? When you pick a book, like you don't know the cover or the author, and you just take it and take a chance on that. And I love that we want to push people to take more chances with reading. There's those favorite authors. You can always love them, but there's so many more authors out there that maybe if you took a chance and walked in the bookstore and bought their book, you'd fall in love with them too. So it's just amazing to hear that's happening,
Yes, it definitely does happen. I find that in the bookstore, they take chances on authors they don't know, which is fantastic. They base it on cover. Online's different. Online, they go to the authors that they know.
And the reviews. Online, definitely. They look at them. We don't have reviews in bookstores, so you can't see what Sherry thought about this. So
yes. Yeah, exactly.
What has been like your biggest challenge with the store so far?
Well, I guess it's a good thing, but the challenge was our first space, which I got, which was absolutely fantastic. It was cute and little and quaint, was too small. And I didn't know that really at the beginning because I didn't think that we were going to have a lot of people in the store at one time. But then I found the behavior of them buying is they would be in there for an hour plus. So it only took 5 people to be in that store for it to feel crowded and it felt too much, So, mid-year, I had to spend a lot of time to move because we needed a bigger space. And then the same thing as well. We started working from our little office at home with the stock in the garage. And then it became, we got storage. And then we moved to one spot and then it was too small. And then now we're in a warehouse and trying to transition in there. And then even yesterday, we got a big truck in. Now, there is well over 100 boxes of different types of books coming in. And I looked at the warehouse yesterday and said to my husband, this is too small. This is too small.
Too small.
Because these are pallets. You're talking about pallets of boxes. My order, I think yesterday was 95 boxes. Before that was 225. So, and these are just like 4 titles. So it's not even a lot of books. So I think it's going to be a transition. And I think the biggest lesson I've learned is I can't assume that things will stay the way they are. So we are constantly evolving. We are constantly moving. We are constantly rearranging and doing things. And so it's not like before where, you have an office space and you expect to stay there for a couple of years. We're constantly moving and shifting with the demand, and the demand is absolutely huge right now. So it's, as Willow said earlier, trying to find the time to write is very hard because ultimately I am the decision maker. And so I feel like every day, probably 85% of time is on the bookstore 5% on writing.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, like, I just get distracted by dust over there. I'm like, oh, and I wander around. I'm like, do you have an actual store that you're a businesswoman in charge of? That to me would be like, oh, that's the only thing I could do. So the fact you're writing on top of that, man, bow down, woman.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like, that's
difficult.
a lot.
You have to imagine that like publishers and bookstores have to realize they dropped the bag a little bit. Like I just walked into a Barnes and Noble. I had a book signing in Florida, Tampa, Florida. It was a gorgeous book signing, and they had a wall of romance with a romance sign, and it wasn't just a little aisle. It wasn't just two aisles. It was a massive space. And I thought, oh, that's new. Even though the majority of what sells in books, in physical books as well as ebooks, is romance, we don't see it typically. And then you and very few other people have opened up these romance bookstores and they are killing it.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. You have to imagine that like publishers can see like, oh, shoot.
Well,
I
I
think
feel like there's
yeah.
there's still this like bigger idea of that it's still shamed a little bit. Like my Barnes and Nobles, you have to walk in the back to find the romance. I mean, it is back in the corner. So, and then to show them that no, this is what, like not only do we not want to be shamed, but this is popular and people want it. So I feel like we're still being told like, no, it should be in the back, but we're like, no, bring it out. Like, this is what people want. Clearly, like by these stores that are making it, they're showing them like, you're missing out. That's fine.
I think it depends on, like, we have bookstores here that are independently owned, and obviously they showcase every genre. We have one close to us in where we're located, and we had a big publisher walk in, and they're obviously trying to, sell their books of all the big publishers. And she said that the other bookstore don't want to take romance. It's not the demographic here. Now, I'm about 30 seconds walk to the other bookstore, and I'm like, well, that's not true because we are all romance, and I'm fairly certain our sales would far outweigh theirs. But what's interesting is that it definitely is an independent bookstore, and it is run by the older generation. They're not familiar with the book talk and the trends. In saying that, we have big department stores here like your Walmart. And last year, the amount of times that I saw the front where you walk in, all book talk, all Anna Hong, all Lucy Score, all that right there, because they knew, right? They know that this is the market. We're going to slam it right in your face as you walk in the department store. They don't care who's walking in. It's right there. And I'm like, they know what's happening, but it's the smaller bookstores, the non-chained ones here in Australia that are like, we don't touch romance.
Do you think it's like a fear type thing? Do you think that they're afraid changing what they carry is going to have a negative effect on their sales?
I think it's the miseducation of what people want. And, we still do get people who walk past our store and they walk in. And I know that they're not romance readers, right? Because you see it on their face, and they tend to be like an older couple that's retired. They're holding hands and it's cute. And they walk in and it's a 50-50. You get oh, this is lovely. Okay, thank you. Nice. And then you get like romance, but who's reading that? And I'm like, well, everyone. Everyone. So I think there are a lot of people that are actually shocked that if you do your research, how well it does. And I don't believe that a lot of these independent stores actually do the research aside from what they enjoy. Now, they look at their numbers and they're probably like, yes, a lot of people buy thriller, autobiographies, blah, blah. But I don't think they actually go out there and be like, let's go on the top Amazon 100 and see what's trending.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or even like Ingram, because Amazon can skew, right? Because they have they have deals with publishers. Even if you look at like Ingram Sparks, what's sold from them, majority is indie romance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's difficult to do research, especially if you feel like and people have their own emotions, their own feelings, and they have their idea of what they think they want to present. And it's still shocking to this day for me that romance is something that's negative because sex is in everything. And violence doesn't negate, like they don't seem to think that that has anything to do with whether or not a book is worthy. But immediately, if there's sex, it's like, this is like, we don't need that. We don't want that. And I'm like, it's it's in Game of Thrones. It's
which is funny how like the emotional sex, which I think we're doing, where we're doing, you know, relationships and bonding and making women empowered, that's shamed. But Game of Thrones sex is not, if you notice, like men and women will all watch that, and it's very degrading to women. So, you know, we still live in a society where, and I think the older ones that aren't looking into it, that are coming, still think of romance as bodice rippers, as like this old, you know, mentality of like, no, they're empowering now. These, you know, romance novels are not what you still consider as, you know, but it's just funny how like I find that sex in men's books are okay, because a lot of times it is degrading and it's very short and it's very much women's boobs bouncing somewhere. And then, you know, where ours is like, we are actually trying to get emotionally, you know, involved and stuff like that. And it's growth and it's change and it's, you know, and that's looked down, that's poo-pooed, you know, and it's just like, wait, what? You know, like it just shocks me.
To that end, I think that you are making such progress and so much wonderful, like you're shining a bright light on something that is so positive, Kat. And like, I know it's business and it's money, and heck yes to that. But at the same time, like, I just want to applaud you and bow down to you for like the progress for coping mechanisms, emotion, sex ed, like all of that stuff. I feel like it's like it comes in the second wave. Like it's massive, I feel like. So I am all down for you to open up 1 million of them in the US also.
Yes.
I'm just hopeful one's near me so I can go.
Yeah, me too.
I've been scouting. Look, I've been scouting locations just to get my feet in the water, and so that's as far as I've gone.
Yeah, that's a big undertaking. That's I could understand. That's a huge undertaking.
It is. I mean, if you need a partner or anything, wink, wink.
I know exactly where to find you. Yeah.
We're like, we happen to be here. I got West Coast, you got East Coast.
Literally.
So like,
oops, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, what right now, like while you're doing this, what are you writing on? Like, what are you trying to like finish? Are you trying to work on a book right now, or is it kind of like more of a story?
I'm doing something that absolutely drives me crazy, but I'm really trying to focus on long term here versus the now. So I opened up a Ream, which is like Patreon. The reason why I chose Ream is because it was created by authors and it's a subscription service. So basically, I've taken all my bestsellers and then I've given them new books in this Ream, and it's a new chapter every week. So one of the things that I've done, for example, there's different levels, is my best-selling Chasing Love. I've done an alternate of that book. So to hopefully not spoil it for everyone, that book focuses on second chance and, you know, she lost a baby and then runs into the dad years later. And so this alternate version is, well, what if the baby still stayed alive and she runs into him with a kid? So because it's so well loved, I'm rewritten it, but it's not something that I would publish on Amazon. So I'm writing this book new. And obviously it's a chapter per week. And then the bonus scenes and that, it's taking my time. I'm behind. So I'm playing catch up, and it's very difficult because it's not something that I'm putting on Amazon right now. So, you know, but I'm trying to think long term here, where I'm trying to build this fandom, keep them with me, and then to keep growing this fandom. And so later on, when I start releasing Amazon again, that I've got this fandom that's always just going to keep coming for my work. I'm just trying to keep this community alive. But obviously, it's a lot of work, as you can imagine. And it's very easy to give up because I'm behind. And I'm like, have to post how many. I lost December pretty much. So I'm behind. And that's my key focus right now. I'm just trying to think of the future. And I know that Willow does it. And does incredibly well with Patreon. So I can definitely see there's a measuring stick there. I can see what she does and how good she's doing at it. And I'm like, okay, that's great. I know that it can be successful, but I've just got to weather this storm right now because it is a lot of work. So basically, I'm writing a chapter a day, but that goes on to that instead of a book that goes onto Amazon.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it
That's
like
amazing.
rewriting that story so you can it and just edit it to fit these changes, or is it like a brand new story?
It's a brand new story. There's certain elements that are the same. So the core plot is the same, that, it's best friend's brother. It's, this time it's 5 years ago, he's still married from college, blah, blah. And then the whole later on, that plot's still there, but just little things. Like, for example, in the first book, I think when they first got together, as in had sex, and, it was like, not first got together, like first kissed, and that was the moment where it's like, shit, he's married, I'm 18. It was at a party just at his house with the best friend there. This time they went away to a lake house. She jumped in a lake. So there's just things like that where I just changed it up a little bit, but the actual scene still happens.
I have chills. I think that this is so brilliant, Kat. And I've said this before to you, I think, but I think that you set trends. And I absolutely love this idea. It makes me think of, there's a movie called Sliding Doors.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah.
I think my whole life I'm always
I'm
like, what if?
obsessed.
Yeah.
And I've thought about doing quote unquote fan fiction of my Merciless World, but I want to make it paranormal. Just haven't bit the bullet yet. And I'm like, that is absolutely brilliant that you did that. When I get more energy, whenever that happens, I will take your lead.
Well,
get more
someone
time.
actually someone gave me an idea the other day in the bookstore. She was a new writer and she was talking about a fantasy she's writing. But long story short, if you've got a dual point of view book, man and female, I don't even have a book to show you here in front of me. So the first half of the book, so the cover and the first half of the book is all the female. And then you flip the book and then it's male on the other side.
Yeah.
But on the bookshelf, if you look at it, it would be designed like you're reading one book, but it's almost, because I was already like, when she was telling me, I'm like, hold on, how would I have the spine? Where would the writing be, like on the spine? How would my name, so when you flipped it, it literally looked And I just thought that is an absolutely brilliant idea. And you could do the exact same thing with an existing book that you have on Amazon.
Yeah, and just write it
and pull away the point of views that they're separate, and then just alternate the cover and the formatting, and you've got something that people are going to be like, hey, wait a minute, I've already read this book, but I want to read I want to read this version because it's different, right? So I thought that was absolutely, my head was just like swimming. I was like,
and
wow.
You already love the story and you can trust the author, and therefore you can fall in love. Because I know that I don't remember the details of a lot of my favorite books. I remember a few scenes or a few quotes. I remember that I love it. I know I like the setup of it. But if I could reread it again and know that it's slightly different, I want to read it again more.
Yeah.
Like I want that little bit more, like just a little bit more of a taste. And it's nice that you can fall back into your comfort reads in that way. Yes. So I love that. That's exciting. I didn't know you were doing it
either. I'm not doing it. But just my head is doing it, but I'm not doing it.
My head does a lot of things I'm not without my body.
So I want to circle back. You had mentioned, and then we got off topic, that people ask you a lot, how do you open a bookstore?
With a lot of big balls. That's
look, I'll be truthfully honest. I don't answer. Because and I know this is tough love, maybe because I'm a mother of 4 and I have an almost 19-year-old and a 17-year-old and a girlfriend staying over right now. So I'll whisper to that. So look, the tough love is when I wanted to open a bookstore, I went onto YouTube. I Googled, I asked Willow questions. I did my research, but I just think like any business you open, you do your research. And the funny thing is that I have friends who obviously work with us and they're not in the book industry, like my husband's best friend. And he said, why would they ask you that? If you're going to open a business, do you go to Target and say to the manager, hey, I want to open a department store, so where do you get inventory from? Like, you don't ask that. You do your research. And, for me, for example, when I wanted to open the physical retail store, I went on YouTube and and watch videos on just how to open a retail store, not a bookstore, a retail store. I needed a POS machine. They said, you need signs, you need this. That's what I started with. I'm like, okay, well, what do I need now for the bookstore? So, all those things, I think if you're dead set on wanting to do this, you will do your homework. You will not ask another bookstore, where do you get your indie books from?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, very, very rare, I will say, I do get asked inside the store, and I'll be like, pretty much every author in here is a friend of mine or a colleague in the industry. So I pretty much just try to hit them up. That's it. Because a lot of them are like, I don't want to ask authors. And I go, well, I can't help you if you don't want to ask authors.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult and unnerving to give advice to someone and have it come back like it's a stone wall. And it's like, no, you could do this. You could break down that wall. You could figure it out. You could reach out to people. And then want more information. Like I get asked questions all the time and I'll give an answer and they're like, oh, well, that won't work for me. Then what? And I'm like,
Yeah.
it can work
I
for
don't
you.
know. Figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, I'm like, I tried. And it's a lot to take on, I think, when you're doing retail. It's also a lot to just work with other authors. I know that can be a lot in and of itself, just relying on other people. But once you get the ball moving and once you have your own groove, I imagine it becomes a lot easier then.
I just think you wouldn't ask. I think you would ask another bookstore if you were serious and knew the seriousness of it and all the business side. It is something that you're like, I'm going to like, it's almost like, how do I say it? It's almost like, no, I'm going to do this myself.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to figure it out, because when it's up and running, it's like a reward. It's like, wow, look what I did from scratch. And that's how I feel. Right. And a lot of the times people will email me and ask, or even say, I have money, so how do I start?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't know. Well, how much money do you have? I feel like saying, well, how much money do you have? Because I also feel, just judging by emails and DMs and what comes through, I genuinely think that they think I will just grab, say, for example, 5 of Willow's books and I'll put it on the shelf and that's it. And I'm thinking to myself, but that's not how it works. You've got to have your stock in the store. You've got to have your backup stock as well. And then while that stock sometimes just sits there, you've got to get the ball rolling. So as you can imagine, from a cost perspective, you've got inventory and money sitting all around you that doesn't necessarily move straight away. So it's, as you can imagine, and Willow, you know this because you have a store, it's a lot of your dollars all sitting around. You can have $1 million worth of books sitting around you. Doesn't mean you have $1 million in your hand, right? It's all around you in books, but those books have to go. They have to be sold. And so I think a lot of people think that I can just buy 5 of a title and put it on a shelf and then we're good. And it's like, okay, but what if those 5 titles go? Now you've got a turnaround time of a couple of weeks, sometimes months, to get more stock in. You've got Amazon shortages, paper shortages, worldwide shortages, China changing their rules now on smart. Like, you've got all these factors coming in, right? And in the meantime, you've got some empty shelves. What do you do?
And we
So
have talked about inventory before, and because I do back order, where you can
yes,
keep ordering it even if I don't have it in stock, and people will wait 2 to sometimes 6 weeks. Sometimes they'll wait 3 months, but you can really get behind when you do that. And I know you don't love to do back order, right?
So, okay, so we have done what we call pre-order. And it really depends on who the supplier is. So, we have been put in a difficult position where we did a pre-order because we were told books would arrive at this time. And then unfortunately, the printer suffered multiple issues. It was printing machines down. It was paper shortages. It was this. There was no cardboard for the cover, whatever. And so what happens, and depending on the level of these pre-orders, is that when this gets delayed, you have readers like this, right? And your time is just spent fielding all these questions of, where is my book? You said this, you said this, you said this. And so that makes it very difficult. But one thing that I've learned from that huge learning curve is that I like to blow out my times a little bit. So if the printer says to me, you're going to get on the 1st of February, I will put mid-February on the website. And if it comes in earlier, fantastic. I keep track of exactly where's the book at, where's the book at. As soon as they give me that tracking number, I'm watching that boat, that plane, like I'm like watching everything. They're kind of like, yep, we're here. We're literally in customs. We're stuck, whatever it is. So I've learned a couple of things to make sure that I feel confident we can fulfill. I think at the end of the day, just as a little, not as a business owner, as a human being, I'm like, I don't like taking your money and not delivering you a product. And that's what it feels like when these get delayed. So I like to make sure before we put a pre-order up, that we are definitely going to get that product. I've ordered that product. It's ready to go. It's just being produced. So that way I feel confident that, it's coming. Obviously, there's always going to be delays that we can't, predict. But yeah, look, we've got port shortages at the moment. I don't know, they're striking somewhere in the port right now. And I'm like, excuse me, that is held up.
Books. Excuse me, just on that. Can I get on there?
Literally.
I mean, look, I won't lie to you. I'm tracking Willow's secret and submissions right now, which left China yesterday and apparently landed in Sydney today. So I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
we're almost we're there.
That makes me happy too. I'll take one. When I come to Australia, I'm just going to swim on by and grab a couple.
But just to put in perspective that, even though it's fantastic that we're getting that in, we've now sold out of highest bidder. So now all the questions is, but I can't get highest bidder. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's probably endless.
One book at a time, please. Yeah.
So just to switch gears a little bit, I know that you're there, you're very busy, but you are coming to the US and you are doing book signings. Do you want to talk about any of those? And I'm manifesting that your shop just continues to run smoothly and wonderfully because you have delegated so beautifully. So when you come to the US and you have absolutely no stress at all, where are you going?
What does that feel like?
I know. What does that feel like?
I've got a lot of so we got Denver in April, which FYI I requested to sit next to Willow. I'm like, we're gonna co-write this together.
Yeah.
And also we share a content creator, Chantel, who's coming with me and is very excited.
Oh, I love her. She's so sweet.
Yeah. So we're going to be in Denver. June is Book Bonanza. And then I don't know if I should say it now, Willow, about
I think that you can because this podcast is going to launch in like March.
Okay. Well, we have a intimate book signing in New York. So we did that in 2022, I want to say.
Yeah.
And it was our first one. So definitely, we had a great turnout. There were things that we loved about it, things we would change about it. And so this time around, we've actually, I think it's great because we've got that base and those readers. So I feel confident that they'll come back and then we'll get another bunch. And forever, how long we continue doing this, it's just going to grow that little bit bigger each time. So, and we specialize in rooftop signings.
We did, if you guys don't know, Kat and I did in 2022 at the Hard Rock Cafe on Times Square. We had a book signing on the rooftop.
I remember that, I think.
Yes, we had hors d'oeuvres and drinks and cocktails and swag bags and signed books. And it was so much fun. And I got Louis Vuittons to celebrate because Kat was wearing them and I was jealous.
They don't fit me anymore, but whatever.
Well, that just means you can get a different pair when you're there.
Yes, I know.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing that. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's what, March, June, and
April, June, and then we're in the US for a month. I've got another signing right after in LA for Little Book Bug, who I always sign with Rochelle's store there every time I'm in LA. And then come home for 2 weeks, and then for Brits Book Fest in York.
I'll be there as well.
I'll see you there. And then I see her again in September. You're coming to Australia?
Yes. Is it September or October? For Tasmania, I'll actually be, it's in Tasmania.
I think it's September. And I was like, I'm already envisioning, okay, so Willow has to sign at Books Ever After.
Obviously.
The other day I was driving to work and I'm like, okay, where are we going to put the table? Okay, but what about
Oh my God.
And then I'm just thinking in my head, should I start ordering the books now? Because like I'm just, my brain's already there, even though I haven't told her. But anyway.
Yeah. I'm happy hearing it now. Yes. Yeah.
And
I love that.
then
Good week there, I think.
and then there's one more. Texas in October 4. Ram. Is it Ram?
Romance Author Mastermind. So you are going to do that?
Doing a keynote speaking, yeah.
Wow.
Wow, that's a lot of flying back and forth from Australia.
Yes, it was, I don't know, 2023 was a difficult year, and then I felt like I was homebound a lot. So, when you do that, you're like, yes, I will go travel
Yes, I'll
next
do
year.
that.
I commuted quite a lot. Yeah. So, yeah.
I love it. I'm doing a similar. I have starting in Stacey, I think I might have told you this already. Starting in at the end of February, I'm gone a week, home a week, gone a week, home a week, gone a week, home a week for like 3 months straight.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I need my baby to learn, my 3-year-old, that when I say, I'll be back in 3 days, I'll be back in 5, that he understands, okay, mommy's coming back. Because right now he doesn't, and it gives me so much guilt.
Oh,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yes, but when I get home, it's like the sweetest hugs and cuddles. So, yeah, that's my struggle with traveling. I know your kids are much older, Kat, right?
Yeah, my youngest is 8 and he has FaceTime. So he just calls me. And the others probably
My
don't
kids
care.
ignored me. I text them, I miss you, baby. Both of them. I text message them. They both ignored me. They were playing Roblox. And I was like, sorry, what?
My son plays Roblox too, so half the time he's just like, I was in the middle of something. So,
Yeah.
and funny you say that because right after this, I have to take him to get Roblox gift cards because he wants to buy something. So I don't know.
Do you want to talk about Chasing Love or the fact that it's like a continuous bestseller for forever?
Look, Chasing Love, it still takes me by surprise every single day that this will forever be my top seller and my bestseller because it was my first book ever, and that's what makes this so fantastic because it was my first one, and how can it be, after all these years, still my bestseller, still the one book that I promote, the one that no matter how many my content creators, no matter how many of my other books that they will push on content and other authors they promote, they say it's only the Chasing Love ones that move. And I said, I don't know. Like it's just I think it's just purely because of the tropes that it kind of ticks these boxes of, the billionaire, the second chance, the best friend's older brother, it's just ticking all these little boxes. I think that I wanted back in 2014 when I was writing it. And to this day, those haven't grown old. And I know that there's a lot of things in this industry that can kind of go through the ebbs and flows of demand. And I definitely see that in my other work. But this one sticks. And I love it. And I love that people become so invested in this world because it is a world. It's 12 books in. And they're so invested that they'll read all through that and then they'll go through to the subscription service and they want all the extras. And so I love the fact that I've created this world. And also what I love about it is that there's a realness to this world because while he's a billionaire and, he's that morally great, character, there's so much realness to these books and, death and loss and, with pregnancies and family and divorces and the whole thing. It's almost like you're stepping in there and you're like, I can relate, but also he's a billionaire. So
also, he's hot and a billionaire.
So, and I think that's why it does resonate with a lot of people. And because they tell me that they're like, it got me out of the reading funk. You were the first book I ever picked up that was smart and I loved it. Or when she lost a baby, I could relate and that broke me. And then I cried to my husband and then we got through it. I mean, that's probably the one thing that for me personally as a woman, of all the things I can write, of all the scenes I can write, when a woman comes to me and said, you wrote losing a baby so perfectly that my husband and I actually grieved together reading it and were able to move on. And I'm like, my heart. That's just,
Wow.
yeah, that's as a woman, I know how difficult that is. So I was just like, wow, okay. Yeah, that's yeah.
There really is so much power in romance books and just writing from the female perspective and how much the coping mechanisms and education that we give. So, again,
Yeah.
I love just echoing that.
Yeah.
Well, it's like people forget there's not just sex in it. Yes, sex is a part of it, but there's so much more to these stories. There's so much that grieving, like you said, grieving and healing and coping and all that kind of stuff. There's such human nature. I'm like, that's in the story too. Like, and I think people think like sex, smut, that's all it is. It's cheap and like vulgar or whatever it is. And I'm like, that's not what these books are at all. So
I
And I
do
think
love
I'm
a
so
book.
glad
yeah,
it's doing so well.
Yeah.
you just can't please everyone, and I've learned that. And as Willow can probably attest, the bigger that you grow on TikTok, specifically that platform, the more the more trolls and haters you may get.
Mm.
And the more people are like, oh, how could you write about this? And I get it every single day, to be honest with you. I promote a video and they're like, what? How can she be in the doctor's surgery and the best friend's older brother walk in? Like, that's malpractice. And I'm like, fiction. I don't even respond anymore. But look, at the end of the day, as all authors can attest to, yes, it's absolutely difficult and the hardest thing to be an author, but it can be equally as rewarding and fantastic, and that's probably why we do it.
Exactly.
Oh my God, that's a great thing to end on right there.
It really
It's like scene drop right there. That's
Make
perfect.
sure you check out Kat's books in the bookstore and they can follow you where, Kat? Your social media
On
handles?
TikTok,
Yeah.
on TikTok,
Social media handle is
at author Kat T Mason, pretty much on everywhere.
perfect. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and ask us all your questions in the comments, and we will relay them to Kat as well. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on and
Thank
having this
you.
chat with us. Yes.
Thank you. It was nice. Thank you.